charging away. My Bitcoin bowl is all I have left. Sold my house, my gold no less. The wolves I circled in my huddling hands, but this man's much stronger than the average man. Today the market has taken another dip to restock, refuel this moonboard ship. My dreams may be futile, oh, this you say, while my Bitcoin bowl keeps charging away.
And now we are live. We are here with Bonds today. Well, let's start with the presentation. Who are you and what are you gonna talk about today?
Hey man, thanks for having me, Anders. I'm here to talk about Tribalbooks, man. A new peer-to-peer card trading game coming to Wax.
Yeah, and okay, so Tribalbooks is kind of well, it was announced just a few weeks ago, so everything is new. So like, can you go through like the basics of what the game is and how users will play it and engage with it?
Sure, man. So it's like I said, it's player versus player battles. Of course, it's an NFT card game. That's why we're here, right?
Yeah.
The game basically will consist of moving through a map where players will battle against each other with decks that you put together. And so before each round, the players will sort of compile a deck. You'll kind of come up with a strategy to sort of put together a deck to go against another opponent, which is another player that's selected randomly. So the game will actually select a player that's sort of evenly matched with you. So that's one kind of cool element of it, where there it won't be such where any one player can compile a deck that's so much better than everyone else's that it'll be sort of unfair. So that's one kind of cool thing about the game, is that every player will sort of have a fair chance of every round, because the game will select a player for you that will be somewhat equally matched. So basically, the player will combine a certain amount of cards before each round, and as well as the cards, they'll also pick one of their magic books. And so that's one of the kind of the key things about the game, right? There's going to be you have a tribal book, and this book is going to contain your magical forces that you pick up throughout the game. So like I said, the game is like you're traversing this map, and the map will have sort of crossroads, and it's not just linear. There isn't just one way you could go. You could sort of choose your own adventure, and on the sides of this map are going to be the heart cities of the tribes. And as you're moving through this map, you're gaining magical forces. And so as you battle other players and you gain experience points, every battle that you win, you're going to gain a certain amount of experience points, or what we call knowledge, right? So as you get more knowledge, you're able to decipher these spells. So the more knowledge you get, the more spells you can decipher. And so once you collect these spells up and collect them into your tribal book, the book now has those spells within it. So of course, all the cards of the game are an NFT, where the books are also an NFT themselves. So as you travel through the game and build up your book, you're sort of gaining value to your book. So you're kind of building up this book, which you can then, of course, sell on the open market.
So if we take a game that someone has played before, is the book kind of usually when you play games, you get some level up, you get a new spell, you get an upgrade on a spell. Is that what the book will essentially be, and you can actually trade your spell book or levels, or?
That's it. It's exactly right, man. You nailed it. So yeah, it's essentially just like you would think of in a traditional game, like experience points, right? So the more battles you do, you're getting more experience points, but it's like knowledge, right, in this game. Yeah. So as you're getting the knowledge of the ancient forces, you're picking up these spells basically, right? And so your book is getting stronger and stronger the more you play. And of course, you can collect more than one book. And so, and the books also are sort of connected to the various tribes, right? So there's sort of tribes spread around the map representing all of these ancient tribes. And so each book sort of also is sort of has its own sort of specialty. And the books also have their own rarity as well. So, you could have, varying levels of rarity of a book, and, start filling up each one with sort of different abilities. And of course, you could keep stacking these books, and of course the books will become valuable, because that's kind of one of the main components of the game. And as of this pack sale that's coming up on November 11th, there's only going to be 1,500 books minted in this first original series. So the books are pretty important, obviously, to the game, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, and so like you said, you kind of build up your experience using this book, and the book, of course, is an NFT. So once you get this book all sort of filled up with all these various spells and magic forces, you can trade that book on the market.
I mean, it sounds really good. The first thing when Tribalbooks was announced, it's a card game. The first thing that comes to mind is Hearthstone, Magic the Gathering, games like this. But you're saying that we are gonna use some kind of map, and it's not a linear map. So how does that aspect work? Is it a real-time strategy game at the same time, or?
Yeah, exactly. That's sort of another dimension to it. It adds a whole nother element. So it is just like you said, it's sort of like a traditional card game where you're matched up against another player, but there's also this element where you're actually have sort of like I wouldn't call it missions, but there's sort of like a map where you could go one way and sort of end up in maybe one direction that you go on the map would lead you to sort of a dead end, but that dead end might contain some really rare NFT or some other treasure that you can get, right? Or some other you'll hit a crossroads on the map and one might be going towards one of the heart cities. So you actually have a choice in which sort of direction you go in the game. So yeah, there's a whole nother element of the game, which I'm really excited about to see. I actually haven't seen the actual layout of the map yet. I think we'll see that in the beta where we'll actually get to go in and test out the map and the map functions. But that's one of the parts I'm really excited about, because I think that's one of the things that the card games, some of them sort of lack, where you're just looking at sets of cards and you're just, all you're really seeing is the cards. And I think by having this map that you sort of you get to choose, your adventure, I think that's gonna, sort of separate it and make it, more like a game that you're actually playing, as well as battling other players using NFTs. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and when you describe this, the first thing that comes to my mind when you describe how you walk around on a map is the traditional Zelda game. Because then you actually move around in different paths, and sometimes you get a dead end and you get some kind of loot and
I grew up playing Zelda. That I love Zelda. Yeah, so I'm not sure if it's going to be like the traditional web crawler style, or if it'll be more like, sort of a static sort of map where you're sort of choosing a direction where you would go, and then that direction sort of gives you a different storyline as far as which magical forces you'll run into, and which NFTs and which elements will help you. So one of the things about the NFTs themselves is that they all have sort of different elements attached to them. And within each card will be, they each have their own sort of power associated with them, and they'll each have an element, either earth, wind, water, or fire. And so you can imagine that the map would tie into these elements in various ways, like like probably certain parts of the map you can imagine where a strategy would come into play, right? So you can, the map will definitely tie into the strategy of how you're assembling your deck. So before each move, you're going to, like pick out cards that you think are going to help you for that next round. So of course, the map will tie into the strategy of the cards themselves. And if you want to actually bring that up now, I know I sent you over a couple pictures of some of what the cards will actually look like. If you want to,
yeah, and
we're talking about
actually, people can see them on screen right now.
Oh, really? Okay, cool.
Yes, because you have a little space next to you, so I actually put it right next to you.
Oh, cool.
So, and I think, well, we can start with the four different pictures, as you know, what you sent me, how it looks and everything.
Cool. So yeah, so those are just some of the basic NFT cards, and you can see up in the upper right hand corner there's sort of a space for the element. So that's kind of what I was talking about with each card having its own sort of element. And one thing that I wanted to point out was that, so yeah, you'll see how on those cards there's sort of numbers, and there's also sort of a description below the name of the card that kind of describes what it does. So when we have the initial pack sale, those actual numbers, like the power number and like the element of the card, will still be hidden. And this is because right now, it's pre-alpha. So through the alpha testing of the game, the devs they're really making sure there's a balance that's achieved between the cards, and making sure that everything works in balance, and that everything has a valuable use case. And so those numbers will actually be added in after the testing is complete and the balance is achieved. And so when you get the cards, of course the rarity will be listed on the card, but the numbers and the element are still being worked on in the beta testing.
And Well, I really like how the card game looks, and I've looked at the designs, and like they start to crack and shine within the cards to show different kind of rarities. At least that's how it looked like. So, what kind of rarities can people expect with these cards? You just said that they are being worked out, but you probably have a plan.
Yeah, so there's I believe 5 different rarities, and of course the mythic being the I think it's the mythic that's the most rare. I think as far as the rarities go, the most rare there's only I think actually you caught me off guard with that one because I didn't have the numbers right
It's
in front
good.
of me. I should yeah, that's one thing I didn't actually have in front of me, and I looked at it right before this, and I had it on my phone actually, and I can't look at it on my phone and be talking at the same time, so I probably should have wrote that down. Yeah, I know that the rarities will somewhat sort of like line up to kind of like what we saw with like similar to like maybe GPK1 where the CEs the collector's edition will sort of be like along the number of cards I believe that are the rare ones.
Yeah.
And of course the rarity of the card will dictate also like its strength in the game. So of course the idea is to get the higher rarity card. When you're assembling your deck, of course the higher rarity cards are going to be more powerful.
Yeah.
But then of course as you're playing the game and if you have a lot of high rarity cards, of course the game will match you up against other players that are also playing with other high rarity cards. So there'll always be some kind of balance achieved between even who you're battling and what kind of deck you're playing with.
Yeah, but I mean, it sounds really, really good, and I like this part that you actually walk around some kind of map, navigate it, and find different kind of quests. And it sounded like the PvP is similar to Hearthstone from how you described it, or the other card games that we are used to. And this kind of like matchmaking, it was a hard word for me to say today.
Right.
That is something that people struggle with for all games that exist. It's very hard to balance that.
Yeah, because you wouldn't want it as such where it was sort of a pay to win kind of game. You wouldn't want it where someone just came in and bought up a bunch of rare cards and then they automatically win. One cool aspect is that there's also going to be a sort of an element of it's called mana, and it's going to be like a sort of a utility token that's going to be added where if you have say a lot of common cards, you can actually burn those cards to get more of these mana tokens, which will actually be tradable for like more exclusive sort of cards. So there's sort of a burning mechanism in the game as well. But having said that, the common cards as well, it's not like they don't have a use. I know one of the things that we've seen, especially with like all these, some, I don't want to say all these, but some of the releases where they've printed sort of a lot of cards, and then there's sort of a ton of these base level cards, and they don't really have much of a value. One thing that is cool with Tribalbooks is that every card has a purpose, and so of course because of the dynamics of the game and the varying levels of the map, every card is sort of important, and there'll be sort of a use case where every card you could see where that card would be the correct strategy. So even collecting all of the base cards to help you complete a set is valuable, because of course I think the way that the game is designed is going to be such that ideally you would have sort of a complete deck, and that would sort of prepare you for any situation, or if you choose properly and you assemble your deck correctly, you could theoretically be able to accomplish any mission, or win any battle against an evenly matched opponent. So I think that that aspect of making all the cards important, or all the cards have a use case, is kind of cool. But also the fact that, like I said, that you can then burn them and sort of level up, so that makes even the more common cards will probably eventually become sort of more rare, because the numbers will sort of dwindle down, and even the common cards will sort of become even more rare.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds great. And one thing that comes to my mind then is Tribalbooks, the information that has gone out is that it's free to play for people, so there will not be some kind of fee. But then there was a common question that, okay, it's free to play, but you need some NFTs. How will that work?
Yeah, that's a great question, man. So it is free to play, and that's something that we want to stress, is that you don't have to theoretically participate in the pack sale. Ideally, you would have a book, but there is a free deck basically that's available for players to start out with, and so by playing the game with the starter deck that basically is free, you could then start to gain experience points and start to collect other NFTs by playing the game. So it's very similar to prospectors, where you could start the game and be doing jobs by hand, right? So it's very inefficient, but you can do it, and it a job will take a long time, but you can earn some tokens or earn some gold by doing a job by hand, or by carrying stuff in your backpack, right? Transporting stuff in your backpack. So it'll be very similar in Tribalbooks, where you won't have you'll be sort of at a disadvantage, but of course there'll be other players also who maybe will be starting for free, so you'll be evenly matched up with them. So players could still start off for free and sort of build up their character and gain experience points, and sort of of course there's NFTs that you can unlock and sort of find along the way, is how I understand it. There'll be like hidden sections of the map that players can stumble upon and gain NFTs that way. So from what I understand, you could start from your free pack and essentially build your way all the way up. And of course, as you know, people play the game of sort of flipping cards, right, on the market. Yeah. So you can imagine that a player could come in with very few cards, or only having spent a couple bucks, and basically by flipping and by sort of collecting some cards by playing the game, and then going to the market and trading up, and then collecting a few more cards, burning some of those for mana, and then trading that mana for another exclusive card, and then using that exclusive card combined with some experience, and basically sort of play the game as well as sort of play the game on the market. Yeah. To sort of build up a deck that you could then be competing. And,
I mean that kind of market strategy, well, it was earlier, but it got huge in World of Warcraft. A lot of players actually go out and then they spend most of their gaming inside a town trading assets.
Yeah.
And that is kind of interesting, because I don't think that the developers of such a game actually had that in mind when they created World of Warcraft. But they clearly had in mind that people could get too many items and start to sell them and trade them against other items. And it's very interesting for a player, because I'm a big gamer and I like that I can actually play, I can earn the NFTs, I can start to trade them, I can get better NFTs, I can play in a more advanced level. And when I go fight other players in this game, I actually get to play people with similar items as myself, which is really nice.
Yeah, that's a great point, bringing up World of Warcraft. And as we all know, as sort of crypto enthusiasts, that was some of the origins of this entire space, right? People mining gold, right, and then the marketplace for selling that gold, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's cool how that aspect of people being able to sort of grind it out and earn. I think that was going back to like you said with World of Warcraft, people were grinding it out. I don't know, reference the South Park episode where they're out. We could just kill pigs in the forest for one gold, and they grind it out and they just kill, hide out and earn gold. But I think that, I see a similar thing sort of happening with this whole movement, with this sort of play to earn. We kind of saw the progression from, free to play games to now it's play to earn, where you can play a game for free and you can theoretically be earning. And, we've seen it with games like Prospectors, where people come in and they're grinding it out, and you can imagine people in other places of the world where they it's worth it for them, and they want to sort of build up a small business, even if it's small, and for them grinding it out is worth it and fun. And I could see a similar thing developing with Tribalbooks, where people make it a point to sort of build up a book and just be building up those books just to bring them to market. So make a business out of building up books, building up their experience points to fill up these books, just to be able to sell these books.
Yeah, and like that was one of the first thing I got in mind, because that's like this is a good strategy, because it's so easy to like present them as a trade. It, like we have multiple markets. It's easy to put up something for trade. It's easy for another player that wants it to buy it. And you don't have to do it in the interface of the game. You can do it from your phone, your desktop, whatever. And that is really cool. And you keep mentioning prospectors, which is very interesting because that's something that this team has worked on before. So let people know. Someone might not even know the game. Some might not know that they are related in some way. So let's start there. What's prospectors? Yeah.
Sure, absolutely. So, prospectors was started by the WeCan blockchain games team, and that's of course who I work for. And that they were the first to create a fully on-chain MMORT, right? So, and it's an economic strategy game. So it was another sort of layer to that that aspect of a game, having it be a play to earn economic strategy game. So this was this Tribalbooks is essentially the second big project created by the WeCan team, and so this is their second free to play game, and this is of course an online digital collectible game, step-by-step NFT card trading game, whereas Prospectors is based on sort of an in-game economy where it's a closed system. So everything, instead of buying NFTs on a market and bringing it into the game, all of the fungible tokens within the game, tools, resources, they all are within the game world. And so for people who don't really know about it, I'll give you the quick rundown. It basically, the world starts as just an empty map with resources, and of course the whole game is based around gold mining. And in order to mine gold, of course you need tools, and of course in order to make tools you need all the wood and steel, and in order so that then creates a need for a sawmill, and it creates a need for an iron foundry where they're making they call it an iron furnace where you're making steel blocks. And of course it all goes back to the minerals in the ground, because or above the ground, because in order for the sawmill to operate you need trees, and in order for the iron furnace to operate you need iron ore and coal and clay. And so all of these minerals are sort of spread in the ground all around the map. And of course when the map starts, these plots are free, and you can go just dig these minerals out of the ground literally for free, and go sell them to one of the iron shops that needs those minerals. And kind of like I was alluding to before, of course you could start the game literally for free and go dig minerals by hand, but it's excruciatingly slow and very time consuming. So you could speed it up by, of course, just buying some tools, or you can handcraft some tools, which also takes some time. But it's very involved and very much matches real life, where you could craft some tools by hand and dig some minerals in the ground, and those minerals have a value in the real world, and you can then walk to a shop that needs those minerals and theoretically sell those minerals right out of your backpack. Or of course you can rent that plot, which gives you the right to build a shop there, or build a mine there and mine those minerals out of the ground. And then of course with a mine you're mining more efficiently. So all this sort of demonstrates that there's a lot involved with the whole economy, and that there's a very particular balance that has to be achieved, right? Like everything in the game has a purpose. Coal of course has a purpose, and the wood has a purpose, and the rocks have a purpose. Like all the things that you can collect all have several use cases. And so the reason why I point that out is because, of course, the team not only has experience building, a blockchain game, but it should instill confidence to people that they've successfully created this game with this very complex, economy. That's trying to create an economy from scratch and have it work in balance is really difficult. Yeah. And so the fact that it works, and that people who are able to dial it in, and who are good at math, and who enjoy that sort of thing, are able to actually play the game and make a profit. Of course, that's not the end all be all reason to play the game. It's kind of just fun, but it is possible to start a legitimate business in the game, and sort of try to concentrate on one industry, or concentrate on having one little piece of all the separate industries, so you can have all of the sort of aspects in-house, so to speak. Like you have your own tool shop, and you have your own iron furnace, so that you can supply your own tool shop with your own steel, and you can sort of keep your own little closed loop system, or you can concentrate on one industry, and sort of work with other people or within your alliance to supply the other parts of the industry. So all of this sort of and the reason why I kind of went in depth on that is to kind of show how the team does have experience with creating a balanced gameplay. And so hopefully people realize that this isn't just some people just trying to like throw out some random NFTs and just try to whip up a game. Like they actually do have experience, and they're actually paying a lot of attention to the balance of the gameplay and making sure that the game itself is fun and that it can grow, and that there won't be just some that it's not thrown together in a way that where people can find some exploiter just like find some way that they can take over the game, or that they can just with a certain combination of cards it's not fun. They really are putting a lot of energy into making sure that the game has a good balance, and I think that's
and what I really like here is that, I mean, Prospectors is a game that has been around for a while, and what is great is that it keeps coming updates, it keeps being worked on by this team that now wants to do another game, which I really like, because that means that the history tells that they don't just release something and run away, but they release something and they continue work and develop it. And that should give some kind of trust in this new ecosystem where we have these new kind of items for games and everything.
Yeah, that's a great point, man. And you're exactly right that they do continue to develop Prospectors like right from the beginning. It just started on EOS, and it was a base layer of the game, and of course it expanded. The map expanded. There was always a plan to be able to expand lands, and then of course a new land was started on Wax, the Yukon, and then it was always on the roadmap to be able to connect these lands. And of course basically a form of IBC, we're now able to bring resources and tools and whatever from EOS land to Wax and vice versa. And now of course they've launched even another land, they're calling the Boomtown, which is sort of a whole nother aspect of Prospectors, where it's sort of a timed thing. It's like a season. So it's the summer season, and or it's as the story goes, the lore, it's kind of the winter season. And so when the it's in the desert, Tombstone is what it's called. And so we have only a 2-month mining season before the sun comes and basically dries up the land, and it becomes a ghost town, sort of akin to the traditional sort of boom towns, maybe in the American Southwest or whatever. But so the point being is that they're continuing development on Prospectors, and there will probably be of course there'll be more development to come, and we'll probably see more development on the Wax blockchain with another boomtown maybe coming there in the future. But like you said, the development continues, and that's one of the points that I'd like to make about Tribalbooks as well, is that it's a long roadmap, just like with Prospectors. There's a lot of plans for Tribalbooks, and so this is just the beginning. When the game starts, it will be just like it was with Prospectors, where it'll be the base layer of the game, and there's so many improvements already planned for the future. They will continue to add to the map and add development to the game, to continue to make it fun and continue adding more NFTs and more type of gameplay. It won't just be like the game gets put out and that's it. Like it'll be exactly like you said. The development will absolutely be continuing, and they're playing the long game with Tribalbooks. They're hoping that in the future it can be as popular as some of the games like you mentioned, where it continues to grow and get sort of a following around the globe, and hopefully can build sort of a base of players that can grow, and of course with Wax can expand and be able to handle this huge, large scale of players that could be playing this game all around the world. And another aspect of what they're going for is this tournament style, which I'm sure you're aware of as a gamer. Like I know, like some of these card games have these huge tournaments, right?
Yeah.
And so starting with this card sale coming up, the pack sale on November 11th, 10% of all the sales from or 10% of all of the sale will go towards a tournament prize pool. And they're going to continue hopefully making bigger and bigger tournaments and hopefully that will draw in more and more players. But of course it's an incentive to get better at the game and keep building up your NFT deck, and get better at the game, so that there's real money at stake. So by being a skilled player and having a valuable deck, you can then, enter these tournaments and have a chance to win, a portion of these prize pools that are going to start to be assembled as soon as the sale.
And for anyone watching this and is not a gamer, if you just go and search for Dota 2 International, Dota 2 International prize pool, and you will see the growth over the last few years. The last one this year, I think, is above $34 million for one tournament of one game. That's like, Dota 2 is an MMO game where you have 5 guys per side per team playing against each other. It's kind of fun to watch, and it's very fun to play, but you need to put in a lot of hours to be good at it. But that kind of game is just one of the games, and there's a vast area of games that has these kind of tournaments from a small pot. I mean, if we just go back 10-15 years, the prize pools of games was not large. A pro player didn't really have enough to actually sustain. But now, well, like in Sweden, we have this event called DreamHack. It's the world's biggest computer LAN event. There comes 25,000 people over a weekend to play games in one place in Sweden. Last few years, there has been these like accountants and firms having booths there because the gamers are getting so much money that they have no idea what to do with it. So they come there, and their only purpose of being there is to be like an ad for themselves for these pro gamers that are at this event, and say, hey, we can help you manage your money that you get from these prize pools. And that is interesting when these kind of companies go to gaming events to get gamers and handle their money. It's crazy.
That's incredible. Yeah. I mean, it's growing so fast too. I mean, just, however many years ago, esports was sort of just taking off, and I didn't even know that about Dota 2. I didn't know that the numbers were that crazy, but it doesn't surprise me at all, because I know I'm not super experienced with that end of the gaming spectrum, but I know how huge it is. I have some friends that are actually that are gamers that are into that, and yeah, I'm not surprised at all. And seeing where this is all going, and also now seeing where gaming is now sort of intersecting with NFTs. I think we're right at the very beginning of sort of a new genre of games. And of course, like Magic the Gathering and these sort of traditional card games are also huge, and there's like worldwide tournaments that go on where there's sort of like regionals, and then the winners of these regional events go on and compete against like the next layer, and then it goes all the way up to where you're doing like the world championships, and there's like big money involved. People are like sponsored by game companies. So you can imagine like we'll have the same thing. I at least I envision a future where there'll be the same thing, but with using with these NFT games, and where you can imagine when these tournaments get to that size, if there's that much money at stake in the tournament, imagine what the NFTs will be worth that are being used for these games. And especially when you have people that are, sponsored and famous, and like we've seen with some of the online streamers, where, you have guys like that are, like Ninja and all these guys that are streamers, where people like, are throwing money, making it rain down money in the Twitch and all this, and where that's going, and seeing as we're just at the start of this, whole new NFT, sort of revolution, where, I'm sure we all envision a future where there'll be, famous players and, using NFTs, and in real time be able to go to the marketplace and be able to, buy those NFTs that those, sort of famous people are using,
Yeah. And what I really like about this, like the concept of that you take 10% of the sale and give back to a tournament for players, is that, to be honest, you don't need I actually double checked the numbers. It's 40 million this year for the Dota 2 tournament. So it's even more. And you don't need that kind of money to sustain players and give them a side income, or actually give them an income that they can actually live on, depending on where they are in the world. They do not need a lot of money to be able to do that, which gives some kind of traction. It gives an incentive to play the game. Not only do you have these assets, because if we take Dota 2 as an example, the biggest chunk of that prize pool is not from the company, it's not from sponsors, it's from players buying items in the game, and that goes to this prize pool. So right. I think I might be wrong here, but I think it's over 90% of that prize pool is from game purchases in Dota 2 and event tickets and things like that. And donations. It's like a crazy amount of times. They buy skins, they buy some item skins and things like that, or some packs that gives them quests and gives them items during the way. And this managed, like the community is building up this amount, and of course there come sponsors they want to show, and that adds up on the sum as well. But all of these items are locked in Steam, and what we have seen before happens with one game. Before H1Z1, the survival game that they had, they just said, this is it. All items that you have bought is now gone from the Steam library, removed. Everyone that has put in money on it just lost everything. Nowhere way going back. And that cannot really happen. It can't happen when we take this kind of NFT way, because if something happens with the Wax blockchain, the database, everything is here. It can just be started up. Everything is back. There is no way that, if there was some kind of big war in the world that destroyed everything, but then at that point it wouldn't matter if you had your assets or not. So there's really no way that this can actually be taken away in that way as it is right now.
No, you're exactly right. Of course, that's why this is also important. People recognize the value of true ownership, and that's why it's all moving towards this. There's a famous quote even by something along the lines of Vitalik saying back in the day, he was mad about some of his game items, right? And that's like the start of sort of some of this whole thing is people realizing the value of wanting to true ownership and wanting to own the items that you've worked for, and then even adding to that being able to capitalize on your time too. People put a lot of time into like a character, or like in this case it'll be putting time into building up your book, and people want to be able to keep that time, keep the value of that time. If I remember back playing video games as a kid, like the thousands of hours that I spent on these random Nintendo games, there was no option to make any money then. And I think what's available now, and I think, man, if I could have been playing to earn when I was a kid, I would have made a job out of it. I wouldn't have had to go I would have never got a real job. Would have probably just played video games. But where it's all going is kind of amazing. And of course NFTs and of course blockchain sort of enables this new paradigm of being able to keep the value of your time and keep the value of your game items. And I think we're right at the very beginning of a movement. And so and if you can think that this is sort of the future of things, you think these sort of games now where we're at the very beginning of it, where these NFT games are these very first original games. People will look back at games like Tribalbooks and say, like, these were the original set. Wax is like on the very forefront, cutting edge of what we all know to be in the future, to be the way things will be done. As people value their time and want to own their assets, people will look back on these original games and the ones that are successful. Of course, if you think like Tribalbooks in the future could be as big as Hearthstone or Magic the Gathering or something. People will look back. Of course, it starts small, like you were saying, like these prize pools now are crazy ridiculous with some of these mainstream games. And of course, this is sort of, we're in this very niche sort of small like market with NFTs right now. But of course, as this grows, people will look back on these collectibles and these games that are starting right now, and there could be a lot of value in finding the ones that you think will be successful in the future. And you can imagine owning some of the original Series 1, original Tribalbooks from the first drop. If this, does get as big as what, of course the developers are hoping, in the future, 10 years from now, people might look back on these artifacts that we found in this original season and in the beta as being, really valuable because there was so few of them at the time. We're sort of the pioneers of this whole new gaming space that's, I think we all agree is gonna be huge.
Yeah, I agree fully here. I mean, everything can happen here. The NFT space will be here. The NFT technology will be here. It's here to stay. When it gets big, people will not understand what an NFT is. They will just know what a digital asset is that is real. That will be an NFT in the future. At least that's what I think. It doesn't matter. I mean, no one knows how the internet, the HTTP protocol works. They just use it.
Exactly.
Doesn't matter. And then the same thing will be for NFTs later. It will be integrated in things. It will be seamless. And right now it's kind of difficult to master everything and get to know it. But that is also why it's fun to be here and to explore it and test things and grow it and so forth. And okay, if we take now, you have a sale coming up next week.
We do.
And this sale is to sell some NFTs, sell these books, sell these cards. If you looked at the thumbnail for this video around here in the thumbnail, you should have seen a lot of cards and assets and things like that.
Right. So the sale on November 11th, which is coming up, I think next week, it's going to be at 12 Eastern Standard Time, so noon Eastern Standard Time.
There should be 6 p.m. in Europe, in most of Europe, like 5 or 6 p.m. Yeah.
Okay. It will feature both types of NFTs. Like I said, there's going to be the cards themselves are NFTs, and then there's also the book, which will contain the magical forces. So there's 2 types of NFTs within Tribalbooks: the cards and the books themselves. So there'll be 3 types of packs that will contain the cards. There's 2,000 starter packs, 2,000 booster packs, and 1,500 legendary packs. And then there'll be 1,500 packs of the book. So I think that's a total of 7,000. But so 5,500 of the of packs that will contain the NFT cards. And so yeah. And like I said, 10% of those sales are actually going to go to the first immediate prize pool. And then of course, after that, there'll be, like you said, ways that they'll fund those prize pools to continue making the tournaments be more and more valuable, to continue to attract more and more players, and hopefully, grow the game and grow the player base.
Yeah. On this, I will have some hard questions that I hope you can answer on this, because right now on Wax, we see sales going on like crazy. There's sales crazy. Like this weekend, I think we had 4 different sales over a weekend. If we just back 3 months, it was one per every 3 weeks if we were lucky.
Right.
So right now, what happens with these assets? Let's say we come next week and not everything sells out. Will the game still be developed? What happens? Will the packs just be burnt, or will it be continued to bought until they are sold out as the game grows? How will this work?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. And you're exactly right, dude. We've seen some of these sales come out of the woodwork now that are, people try, people have used the word cash grab, so I think, there's a lot of valid sales and a lot of cool art. And, there's a lot to be said too for art, NFTs. I think that's a whole separate sort of genre of where this is. So I think there's sort of these different genres of art, and then collectibles, and then you have this sort of genre that Tribalbooks falls in, where it's actually with a utility.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're not selling these NFTs to be a collectible or for the artwork. They're selling them to be used for the game. So to answer your question, these packs are minted, and so they will be for sale. So if they don't all sell out, they will stay for sale, because of course, the game is still a ways in development. I think right now we're still in a pre-alpha stage. I think we're just entering the alpha stage now, and of course, as we enter beta, we'll be looking for beta testers. So of course, anybody who's interested in that can join the Telegram and keep an eye out, and hopefully get into the beta if you're interested in helping actually test out the game. But as the game gets, if they didn't sell out, I think that, as the game gets more traction, and as people are testing the game out, and we start to see, shots of gameplay, and as the game is nearing release, and of course there's more hype around the game, I think that, I think it's all, the pack numbers aren't such where, they didn't do some ridiculous, crazy run like we've seen some people offer crazy numbers of cards. I think they did it. They paid attention to make sure that the numbers were about appropriate to how many players they expect to play. And I think because we have an existing user base, and judging on the amount of people who are already within, sort of the Wax ecosystem, and people who are already doing these sort of card-based games, like we see already, like with Dark Country, maybe like Splinterlands, like these other NFT turn-based card games. We kind of judged about, how many people should be interested in it. And I don't think they'll be a hard time selling out. And if they don't sell out, I think that as the game gets gets closer to release, I think it's inevitable that they will, because people will want to, as they see that there's prize pools and there's tournaments starting, people will want to have those rare cards, and people will want to have as close to a complete deck as possible. And of course there'll be a secondary market already going, so I think there'll be incentive for people to sort of be collecting the cards and assembling their decks before the game starts. But yeah, that's a good question, and it's definitely something the teams thought a lot about. They definitely didn't want to, we didn't want to overproduce cards. We didn't want them to be sort of too abundant so that they don't have a value. But we wanted, of course, there to be enough cards for there to be a good solid player base at the beginning. We didn't want them to be too rare, where any one whale could come in and sort of buy up too many, and then sort of skew the balance of having too many rares and under. We of course want the cards to be able to be spread out. There's always a balance to be achieved, right? Like you want everyone to be able to have some cards, but you don't want to overproduce them. So you don't want to make it so that they don't have any value. So I think they picked a good number with making the books, making 1,500 books, which is about the number of players I think that are regularly play on Yukon in the wax for prospectors. So I think it's a smart number to start with, assuming that it's a relatively new game in a niche market, and assuming that there'll be a lot of growth. So of course when the game launches and eventually they do the Series 2 or a Series 3 sale, it'll be of course by how many players are actually playing the game, where of course right now there is no game, so it's just totally like guessing about how many players would be interested in the game. And I think they did a good job picking a number that won't totally flood the market with cards or the books.
Yeah, and I think this is a good point to make, that the difference about this and the collectible releases we have seen is they are purely to collect and to perhaps combine as most of utility. But as a game asset, I don't think it has to sell out at the start. So it makes me happy that it will stay open, so people can actually, some people might want to start to see it, to explore it before, and perhaps they are lucky and there are some packs left there. That would be a nice thing if they are not bought up at first. And like that kind of thing is great, because that is not the same thing as these collectible things. If the only value your asset has is that it's scarce, then you want it to sell out and you want to have more, right, in that case. But it doesn't have to be that if you buy it to play the game, the same way like Dark Country and Alien Worlds and the Splinterlands and the other games, the assets might have a value because you have them, you can trade them, you own them. But the real value is that it has a utility in a game, and that is why people should buy this, to play the game and to explore it. And 1,500 books, if you need one or benefit from one to play the game, I think that will be something that some guys that has played Prospector, trusted team before, they don't want to buy one book. They probably want more if they plan to do this.
Right. And it's not that many when you put it like that. When you really think about it, yeah. If you want to play the game, 1,500 is really kind of a limited run. So yeah, I think I totally agree with you. Yeah, like having utility, I think is sort of the next level of for NFTs, I think that the collectibles, like you said, just being scarce isn't really enough unless it really has a name behind it and sort of an already like an existing collector base. GPK, Garbage Pail Kids was already collectibles in the real world. Like there's already groups of people who collect the cards and are like really die hard. They have all the sets, they know the statistics and they know the number.
Yeah.
People really cared about it. So I think those when those come to NFTs, you have this existing collector base that wants to participate. But I think then people that try to make up a sort of IP out of thin air and just sort of try to only by making it scarce try to make it collectible, they're sort of fighting an uphill battle. It's a difficult thing to do. So and I give credit, and I've publicly given a lot of credit to Joel and Travis for BCH, for Blockchain Heroes, because they basically created this sort of brand, and it was very successful, and they did a good job building a community around that and getting a lot of excitement and but that's a difficult thing to do. And as we've seen with some of these sort of other purely collectibles NFTs that just sort of come out of the woodwork that don't do the as good as a job building a community or marketing or whatever, they flounder, and they're not, probably in a few years they'll be they probably won't have any value, whereas some will and some won't. And I guess that's the whole thing with collectibles. I guess you don't really ever, people don't know exactly what's going to last into the future. But I think if you give something utility, then I think it gives it that sort of extra value layer where you can sort of anticipate in the future. Well, if the game is good or the game catches on, then you pretty much know at least it should have a value into the future, especially if it's being also scarce, and also the first release of this limited edition set for this game. If you think the game will be successful in the future, or that there'll be more players that want to play, it stands to reason that the original set and the original series of the scarce items should hold their value at the minimum, right? Or possibly go up in value.
Yeah, and I mean, user base is key. And as you say, that launching a new project that is pure collectible, that is difficult. It can be done, and like in Joel and Travis' case, when they launched it, the difference here is they actually had a brand, they had a following, they had these people built up over years.
True.
Now they didn't have an NFT collectible like following, but they really did a good job with the designs, with building the community, with engaging them, doing this as like they really built a community around it. And it's difficult to keep that, like the trading volume up, because the trading volume has gone down. It has gone down a lot.
Right.
But people are still excited about what they are doing. They are excited about their releases. They are excited about the next release that they are doing. And I mean, doing that, and if they succeed with the next one, that will be even more impressive, because then they do it twice. And that is very difficult to do for something that is collectible. And worth adding here also is that as an NFT, they are collectibles now. They can build something later that give it utility.
Exactly. And I think that, to build on that point you were just making, if there was to be some game that came out somehow, if they were able to, gamify those cards, I think we would see a sudden resurgence in the trading value of those cards, right?
Especially the first one.
Exactly. Like, if there was to be some game developed, we would see suddenly people interested in going back to those first and trying to complete the sets, and etc. So yeah, I think utility has a lot to do with the success of a release like this.
Yeah, I agree fully with you. We have been on this for a while. I know you have a meeting soon, so let's round up this. Let's end with the last point about when is the sale, how much is being sold, for what price, where can people find more information, and let's go.
Right on. So, like I said, sale is November 11th. It's coming up fast. You will need wax. The sale will only be done in wax. It won't be a credit card sale this time, which is kind of cool. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's it will be an Atomic Assets, if I didn't mention that already. And like I said before, it will be there's 2,000 starter packs, 2,000 booster packs, and only 1,500 legendary packs. And there's 3 cards, 10 cards, and 10 cards respectively in those 3 packs. And and like I said, 1,500 books packs. And so, yeah, there's also a contest going on right now. If you go to tribalbooks.io, for anybody who's interested in trying to gather up a few exclusive assets before the game actually starts, you can go to the website at tribalbooks.io and sort of complete those tasks and try to gather up some of those exclusive assets. And I would say everyone should join the Telegram group at t.me/tribalbooks and try to keep track of what's going on, and sort of would like to be cool to start to gather a community and have sort of a people who are interested in playing the game and helping develop the game. And of course, if you're interested in taking part in the beta test, it'd be cool to be part of the community. So join the Telegram and keep track of what's going on. And of course, follow us on Twitter at Tribalbooks.
And when this video is live, all the links are below in the description, so that is perfect. Thank you for coming on and sharing this. It sounds amazing. I love that more games and utilities coming to the NFT space. So peace.
Thank you so much, Anders. Great job, man. I appreciate you having me.